Time for 6 things we've learned this week, and because of the big races at Bathurst, I thought we'd look at the Bathurst Carnival, six things we've learnt from the Bathurst Gold Crown Carnival. Robbie Morris is with me. Thanks for your time, Robbie.
No worries, thank you.
It was a great carnival, and first point I think we should talk about is the track. Have made quite a deal of the fact Luke McCarthy, who's driven on a lot of the 1,000-metre tracks in Australia, says it's the best one we've got in the country. Blake Fitzpatrick drove on it for the first time on Saturday night and said what a cracking track it is. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's a really good track. It's super track, Bathurst. We've gone there a lot over the last sort of 3 months, and it's a really good track. All horses get their chance, and you can pretty much win from anywhere, so it's a really good track.
Just watching horses, especially out wide on that final bend, they seem to really be able to roll off that final turn, and you can keep your momentum up if you're out wide on the track where, you know, if you're wide, especially on the old Bathurst track, if you're wide on that final turn, you're out of play.
Well, at the old Bathurst track, if you drew 10, you could really just say, I need a lot of luck to win. Now, you draw 10, 12, 13, you're still a very good chance at Bathurst, so it's a really good track.
Yeah, just looking, you mentioned that, the 3 place getters from the Gold Crown, all through the second row,
yep.
and I did a story last week. I think since the new track's opened, the most successful barrier over the short trip has been barrier number 10,
yep.
which is quite surprising for harness racing in this day and age. All right, let's move on to another thing that we learned over the carnival, and that is the performance of Shadow Runner to take out the Bathurst Gold Crown. Plenty's been made of this story. Sam DeMarco back training horses, hadn't trained a horse since 2001, resumed to win the Bathurst Gold Crown, and it was a pretty good performance, good drive from Michael Formosa, very aggressive, but a deserved win.
No, the horse, I've only sort of had the chance to watch him in 2 of his runs, which is the heat and the final, and he's an outstanding big moving horse. They've done a really good job, the DeMarcos, and they're a nice family, and it's a credit to him. But Michael Formosa, he drove him a treat. He sort of had to be aggressive, he had to be positive, and that's what won the race. Of
the beaten runners in that race, I thought Carlu Damager was a really good run for Peter Gavin and Barry and Rhonda Lou. He's a big green horse. He's still learning what it's all about, but gee, he motored when he got out.
Yeah, he's a really nice horse. He, I know Barry and Rhonda and Pete have had a really good opinion of him for a long period of time now, so he looked like he's the full package. He's got to learn to race a little bit more, but when he does, he's going to be a really good horse.
And Better Match, dislodged a knee boot early in the race and then was never comfortable at all, put in a couple of roughies, and he finished down the track, which was very disappointing for the people who are taking the short odds.
Yeah, it was unlucky, really, because I was sort of come out of the gate and I was right beside him, and the knee boot slipped and he sort of trod on it, and he was actually quite lucky because he sort of trod on it and it caught his front leg, but the knee boot snapped instead of holding him, so it was probably quite lucky. It could have been a lot worse, but he's a really good horse, and that's racing. Things like that happen, so you just got to put that behind you.
What about Charleville? You ran 5th. Happy with that?
Yeah, he's a lovely horse. He's sort of not up to the real good ones, but he's gone to the paddock for 3 weeks now, and he'll be ready for the Breeders' Challenge. He's no star, but he's great for connections.
Next thing we learned, Steve Turnbull finally cracked it for a win in one of the Bathurst features. He's driven a Gold Crown winner, but had never trained a Crown or Tiara winner. But he did it with Pixie's Parlour, and she was impressive. She got to the front and then just sprinted away. Yeah,
couldn't be a more deserved family to win a Crown or Tiara. Just was too good for him, really. Amanda drove it positive too, and it was just too good.
27-3, 29-3 the last 2 quarters, and Amanda Turnbull back at home, of course now domiciled in Victoria, but still when she turns up in New South Wales, she's very hard to beat.
Oh, she's a very good driver, Amanda, and the good part is she's extremely lucky. She's got a dad and Mitch and the whole family still at Bathurst who do a terrific job with their horses, so when she turns up, she knows she's got good calibre horses to drive.
And both of those horses, both of the winners of the 2-year-olds eligible for the Breeders' Challenge later on in the season, so we'll see more of those. Now, what about Artistic Flight? Took out the Gold Chalice. Now, he won the Gold Crown last year, 12 months ago, when he was trained by Anton de Galino. He's obviously had a stable change, now trained by Shane Tritton, and despite the wide draw, proved too strong.
It was big. It was a really big run. There was a bit of speed on early, come out from underneath him. Sporty Spook tried to sneak through, which was a good drive by Jared, but just couldn't get there. So he's just a good horse, Artistic Flight.
He looks like he's obviously got a long season in front of him, and Shane's hasn't overtaxed him in the early part of the season, but by the sounds of it, they're going to go to the well a few times now. He's off to Queensland for the Seymour. He'll be back for the Breeders' Challenge, and then probably back to Queensland for the Derby, and then go to the Breeders' Crown. So he won't know himself over the next couple of months. It's going to be a pretty busy time for him.
It's a big risk. But they obviously think the horse can handle it because it's sort of... I know he did it last year when Anton had him, and I don't think he handled it last year. like he come to Breeders' Crown time and he was struggling to make the final. So it's a big risk, but he's paid up for the races. You try and earn them when they're young, and he earns his money. If it pays off for him, well done. But it's sort of a big risk for an early 3-year-old that didn't have a lot of racing as a 2-year-old.
You drove Sports Chayton in the race. He was one of the favourites for the Gold Crown 12 months ago and got beaten in a heat. So he obviously hasn't had much racing. Must have had a couple of issues. He's had the stable change, but his run was pretty good. Yeah,
he's a really good horse. He we got him when the owners purchased him. Probably purchased him a little bit late for what we wanted, but he had to go 4 deep, sort of from the 800. Nothing was taking him into it, and he had to go solo, and he stuck on for third. But he's Breeders' Challenge now, so he'll have an easy fortnight. Find a couple of races for him and go ahead that way.
Read about Lexi, took out the gold bracelet. Great story. Bernie Hewitt trains for Lex Crosby, who's the president up at Yagowra. They've had the breed in the family for a long time. It's 8th or 9th generation. She was really dogged. She was headed by Luke McCarthy's Makes Every Sense, and to her credit, she fought back tenaciously.
Yeah, I got to say, I thought she was gone at the 400. Like, Makes Every Sense loomed up, and Makes Every Sense a big, bold, imposing filly, and little Lexi's 4 foot tall, and you can just see her head dropped 4 inches, and she just tried her guts out, and geez, she's a beautiful horse. Like, I know you look at her and she's probably just a plain little thing, but she's all heart, and it was great to see for the Hewitt family. They've been consistent. They've always got good runners in big races at Bathurst, and it was good for Bernie. I know he puts a lot of hours in working and breaking in sort of horses and things like that, so he deserves it all, and Kath's always there with him, and all the boys, all his kids are great. So and Lexi's been consistent and tried really hard for generations. So it's really good to see people have a bit of success.
And she's now off to Victoria for the Victoria Oaks. They're going to look at that with her. There's no real standout in the 3-year-old fillies either. So, she's going to be very competitive when she does get down there. Last thing we've learned, he's a thrill, taking out the Mares' Cup. That horse has improved a lot in the last... Well, he's been a good horse since he arrived from New Zealand for the Turnbulls, but in the last 3 months, he's come a long way.
Yeah, it seems that he's one of them horses. From Steve and Amanda have done it right. They sort of raced him through, and he won a lot of easy races, and then he come to Menangle and took that next step, and then they give him a let up, and he's really gone from a nice free-for-all and now to... Looks like he could be pushing some really good races.
I threw the question to Steve in an interview after Saturday night. What do you do with him now? Because he was good in the Young Cup behind Frith. He sat 3 deep.
He was massive in the Young Cup.
Yeah. And was coming at Frith on the line.
Yeah.
And then he comes out and he wins. That was tradesman-like the other night. But does he throw in a wild card and see if he can get into a Len Smith mile and give him a crack at a horse like Bowtide? And
why not? I know Steve will make the right decision either way, but I'd like to see him driven off the pace. Like, that sort of race would suit him when they're going to go 51 or quicker, and they can tuck him in instead of having to go to the chair. And, like, he's run at Young. Horses don't do the last half he did at Young 3 deep, and come at a horse like Thrift, who earlier would have probably went 48 herself, chasing a door meet.
Yeah, no, it was... I think He's a Thrill's going to keep getting better and better. All right, Robbie, thank you for that. Thanks for joining us for 6 Things We've Learned, and we'll be back again very soon with another edition of it right here on Trots TV.